What are the challenges with ONDC? UPI, in comparison to ONDC, was much easier to implement. This was what they mentioned in the Jeffries report as well, because ONDC is a much more complex ecosystem. UPI was just cash, right? The only thing that to replace was cash. And you can think about cash as one single SKU, one single item. While with e-commerce, you have to deal with millions of SKUs. There's so many other variables, including quality of the product, look and feel, freshness, returns, customer support. There are many more problems, many more complexities with ONDC. And even if you think about the payment systems that existed before UPI, right? There were two options: either you pay cash on delivery, or you use something like Paytm Wallet. I was a pretty rigidized person. I never used Paytm Wallet because I hated the idea of Paytm Wallet, because I hated the idea of being forced to put money in there. Now, the reason I shifted to UPI, and I think the reason many people shifted to UPI, because that infrastructure of digital payments was so bad that we preferred UPI. But now think about your experience with Amazon and Flipkart. You're pretty happy with Amazon and Flipkart, right? Why would you switch to something different? It's pretty decent. It's not bad.
Amazon. Happy with Amazon. Different depending on different people you ask. One of the things that's going on Twitter right now is on Flipkart, if you buy something, there is a mandatory, it's free, but there's a mandatory purchase of a Byju's class. You cannot remove that product from your cart, even though it's free. You can't really remove it. I still actually don't know, and I've spoken to so many people. For the last few years, I've just defaulted to Amazon. Like, I don't even check prices on Flipkart. I just don't like to go visit that website anymore.
So if you again look at Sajid Pai's episode, he talks about India 1 Alpha, India 2, and all that stuff, right? India 1 Alpha tends to use more Amazon. India, I think 2 tends to use more Flipkart. Anyway, let's get back to ONDC. So one thing is you're basically happy with what e-commerce you have right now, right? Secondly, India right now doesn't really have regulation when it comes to customer liability on e-commerce. So in case there is any issue with your ONDC order, who is responsible? So if a customer receives a faulty good, who's responsible? If there is a challenge in payment, like double clocking of the transactions, who is responsible? If there is a customer complaint, where does it go? And that is a big question mark that I've not been seen answered anywhere in the research that I did about ONDC. Right? That's a big question.
That is it. I think that's the thing. Customer complaint, like that's a header that you can say everything goes under bad quality products, counterfeit products, delay in shipment, wrong charges. Everything is customer complaints. And why Amazon is their customer experience is fantastic. You reach out to them and you tell them what the issue is, and they are very prompt in solving for that. That's why they've been able to build that trust over the years. That's why people prefer the Prime membership. That's the entire moat that they have, the customer experience. Who's responsible for customer experience in ONDC has been my question since I read it. And from what I understand, it's still an open question because that hasn't been answered for yet.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the main determinants to its final success. And you mentioned Amazon Prime, which brings me to that what I said earlier about Amazon and Flipkart differentiating the app. Like on the app, maybe there's a toggle that if you're a Prime member, you will see also the non-ONDC products, which we are only selling on Amazon, right? So they could do this differentiation as well because they do have access to the customers. The customers believe in Amazon and Flipkart. They don't believe in some random new app that's going to come up. So anyway, this customer complaints is one of the most important questions that needs to be answered. But another problem is that similar models have been tried in the past and they've not worked. There's one in particular that comes to mind. It's not an open network model, but there was something that was done in the food delivery market to bypass Swiggy and Zomato. Okay, so there are these companies called DotPay and Thrive, which are basically direct delivery enablers. They helped restaurants basically build their own app and take charge of their entire supply chain, build digital menus, tech support for restaurants, all of that stuff, right? And they had partnerships with logistics companies for delivery to make sure that restaurants can own that entire service. But the traction on these direct delivery apps was very limited. And the biggest problem was customer acquisition spends. Without that, the reach of these direct delivery apps has been very limited.
Yeah, because what happens in DotPay or Thrive is they're responsible for the tech infrastructure. They might help you partner with the logistics, company, whatnot. But it is the restaurant's responsibility then to find the customers and convince them that, hey, don't go on Swiggy or Zomato, come to my direct app or website or menu wherever I've hosted it, right? And that is a lot of friction. Our default behavior is to go to Zomato or Swiggy and then go through the listings, unless there is a very famous restaurant. And I think Domino's is in discussion of like getting off of this platform because of the margin. I think they will still also, face some challenges in revenue, but they might be okay because Domino's is a brand where you want to go eat at Domino's, right? Like it's a verb when you're eating pizza now. But I can't say the same thing for another Indian food restaurant or another sandwich restaurant or whatnot. So, and that's been the case where all this disintermediation and opening up the protocols makes sense at an idealistic level. But as I was getting to earlier, you are disrupting an entire experience that seems to be working. It's billions of dollars that have already gone into e-commerce. People are comfortable with it. So yes, you are solving for making it more competitive for the MSMEs. But if the customer experience is not on point, does it really matter? And that's my biggest sort of asterisk with ONDC, which is what you're saying, that nobody has really answered it so far. And only once we see it in action and maybe there are solutions waiting to be built. Maybe it is an iterative process to get to that solution. I don't know. But as it stands today, in fact, actually, I wanted to understand from what I was reading, it's already live, right? It is one of those things that is already live in Bangalore and Bombay and Delhi.
So like you mentioned, customer experience, customer acquisition, that is going to be the key to see whether or not ONDC is going to be successful. Are people willing to pay that money to acquire those customers? And I don't know. We're going to see, because Amazon and Flipkart have literally spent billions to build their seller side and their buyer side. Are other people who are going to come on the ONDC network going to be willing to spend that money in order to build that network? And it goes back to the cold start problem, right? And somebody has to spend that money. One last question that comes to mind in terms of the challenges with ONDC is that UPI was also an open source platform, but then it became dominated by Google Pay, Paytm, PhonePe, and a few other companies, right? Why will this not just happen again with Amazon and Flipkart? Because they have the brand recognition in the e-commerce space. They have the economies of scale. We could just end up with the same UPI result, that a few companies are going to dominate the entire space. I don't know. I think it could happen.